Hey there, and welcome to a patch walkthrough for my most recent patch, Dark Star. I'm going to talk you guys through the basics of what's happening here, some of the interesting things that are unique to this patch, and then other little things that are happening in the background. There's two main voices happening. One is the Mavis, that's getting just random stepped voltage from here, quantized by the Bard Quartet, and then sent out there. The triggers are being controlling math 1 here, to control my envelope here. And the other voice is Plaits over here, that is also being controlled actually by the same LFO, but attenuated a little differently, and sent to the second channel of here where it's mostly playing just kind of root notes. We'll talk about how this is being programmed in a little bit. Just kind of giving us our bass roots there. So no sequenced melody at all, just entirely random. But all the sequencing happens through what notes I choose on the Bard Quartet Quantizer. I've also got a bass drum being sequenced down here, just the high resonance on the filter, cutoff being brought up into audible range with the ADSR every time one of these gates kick off. Then I've got some envelopes here on my pressure track that are VCA for my white noise. So that's the basics of it. Here's the interesting things. Main interesting thing is the main voice here and how I'm using the Bard Quartet. So this guy is being sequenced in the harmony knob. So I have set up basically a C minor scale here, an F minor chord, and a G major chord that then my velocity track here changes between. So on this step here, or on these 8 steps here, it's on the C minor scale, just playing randomly across the C minor scale. Then it goes to the F minor chord, back to the C minor stuff, then it goes to the G. So it's going kind of first step, then second step, then back, then third step, then back. But the unique thing about that is then what I can also do is I can set up other interesting things to happen if I move it over to step 4. And then it's going to do a mostly A flat major chord, and then have the melody actually be in the second voice now. Back to the A flat major chord. And then the melody being in the second voice again here. So that's one thing I really like about the Bard Quartet, is I love hiding sequences behind a quantizer. So in my main setup, this second voice really is just playing the roots. It's only quantized to just the one note, but it's still being quantized. There's still a random sequence going into it. It's just only letting it come out as the roots. But then when I go to a step like this one over here, now it's got the full G major chord in that voice, while voice 1 is giving more of just the root. So I set this up to be able to use 1, 2, and 3, or 4, 5, and 6, or 6, 7, 8. So 6, 7, 8 are actually the same 3 chords as 1, 2, 3, but it's flip-flopped on over here. Number 2 is doing the C minor scale. And then it's going to go to the F minor chord, back to the C minor scale, into the G major. Whereas starting here on voice 1, or step 1, it's swapped, and this is the main one, and that's the roots. So it's kind of fun to be able to swap those around like that. Another interesting thing that's happening here is the bass drum. So it's being gated here just by this main gate. And I can of course use more steps if I want to. And right now all you're hearing is just the resonance of my cutoff. But sometimes I actually mix in some audio in there. If I want a really crunchy sound, I mix in the stuff from VCO1, which is heavily FM'd. The two main, most interesting things, the way I use the harmony stuff with the Bard Quartet, and the way I set up my bass drum and bass line, kind of depending on if I'm just using just the resonance of the cutoff of the filter, or if I'm feeding it audio too. A few other little details just to keep things interesting. My Variegate 4 Plus here is feeding some pretty random of a sequence in to modulate some of the things of my secondary voice, my Plaits voice here. It's just kind of droning here. As well as LFO1 from my Mini Brute. Just ever so slightly tweaking my cutoff point of the Three Sisters. The other thing that I really had to jump through with the hoops I had to jump through with my small system is I wanted my percussion sounds of my bass and snare to be completely dry. So there's no effects on these guys, but I wanted my effects on my main two melodic voices, which is just a ping pong delay from in the FX aid. But this guy obviously needs to be stereo, so what I needed to do is I needed to mix together my snare and my bass got mixed together over here, and then that got split and sent to two different places with my attenuator here. And then the left channel of my FX aid is actually being mixed in the hexagram with the output going to the left ear, and the right channel of my FX aid is being mixed down in this tiny little mixer that's on the Mini Brute 2 patch board, and and then that's going out to my left here. So I think the next module I might look at getting is kind of a matrix mixer that I think will help me out in sending stuff to the effects and stuff not be so complicated, but right now that's how I have to do it. If I want some things dry and some things through the effects, and still need the stereo effects. So there you go. Hope you enjoyed. Forgot to mention one final thing actually. I do have the bass drum ducking the main voices too. So the audio of my bass drum from that is being sent into channel 4 here with settings like that, and then this right here ducks those melodies out of the way. Most obvious when I turn it down. But it does it before it's attenuated, so I can. Happy patching.